Yeah, the new year is starting with more of a bang than a whimper, with lots of sports news coming your way between now and 9:30. I'm Ger and Eoin here with you every morning from 7:30. Owen's here as well. Owen, how are you?
Very well.
Celebrating after a win last night for your beloved Arsenal. What a performance they put in against Leeds. Swashbuckling, everything you would expect from a Mikel Arteta team, right?
A win and a clean sheet back-to-back against Manchester United and Leeds. It would be good if it was 2004.
Clean sheets.
You'll still take it in the year 2020.
Clean sheets, in fairness, very important.
We moved to a back three last night as well. It's always, which is something that they've obviously flirted with recently, but it's kind of encouraging moments. You weren't sure if he was going to put out the full strength team, and he ended up doing that. And Reese Nelson scored the most scrappy winner you're ever likely to see. The entire match was truncated by Danny Murphy just having a pop off Granit Xhaka basically in commentary, baying for blood. Well, by blood I mean a yellow card at some point for Granit Xhaka. And I don't think he ended up getting booked in the end. I saw a lot of people on Twitter, including Louise Quinn, saying, "Give it a break, Danny Murphy. What is the agenda against Granit Xhaka?"
I don't know. A lot of modern footballers don't fit the prototype of what Danny Murphy's honest pro would actually have been back in the day. I mean, is it fair to say Danny Murphy played back in the day? Is he that old now?
Yes, he did.
Did he?
Well, although I did see Ger and Eoin open match of the day saying that this time at the start of the decade, Danny Murphy was still a football player.
Yeah.
Which is remarkable to think that just 10 years ago he was a
remarkable.
professional football player. It is crazy.
It feels like a long time ago Danny Murphy played football, does it?
Yeah. It's like Danny Murphy's retirement is probably coming up at around 8 years at this point.
Right.
So that certainly makes me feel...
You think back in the day?
Like, I mean, I would have...
There's like now, football is like pre-VAR and post-VAR. You grew up in the pre-VAR era. Mm-hmm. You're like a grown adult. So the kids now will be like, "Did they have VAR in your day, Dad?" And you'll be like, "What?"
Well, this is my day. This is still my day.
No, I think...
yes, they did have VAR in my day. And then there was a pre-my day when I was a mere young one. And we didn't have VAR. But I'll be able to pass down those stories as well. I'll be able to live to tell the tale.
Yeah, okay, so you'll remember that pre-VAR era, the black and white and all that kind of stuff. It all merges, that's the thing. It's like pre-Premier League, you don't remember any of that stuff. But it doesn't really matter anymore, because there'll now be like football before VAR and football after VAR, and VAR will be the point where everybody goes, "No, there was no football before that, those records don't count."
They really don't count.
Ger and Eoin scored whatever and it goes, but he's offside for half of them, so they don't count.
Liverpool were the first football champions, it will turn out.
And that's it. And they'll be the only ones, maybe, for a while, the way things are going at the moment.
Perhaps.
Pep Guardiola is playing tonight against... he is not playing tonight, but his team are playing tonight against Manchester United. And this is one of those very understated build-ups to a Manchester derby. And yet, I mean, am I right? Maybe I haven't tuned in enough to the build-up, but it seems quite an understated... It's only the Carbery Cup, so maybe people don't care about it that much. But it has the potential to be shocking for both teams.
Possibly.
If this Man City team loses to Manchester United, this Man United team, over the two legs, like, WTF.
You know the way when something is a big deal these days, you're supposed to say, well, we've got the small deal of something coming up. Well, I heard them on Sky Sports this morning saying, well, we've got the small deal of United against City in the EFL Cup tonight. Yeah. I'm like, no, that doesn't work for the EFL Cup because it is the EFL Cup.
I know, but I love the League Cup. It's under lights, knockout football.
Two legs.
Not tonight, but yes.
If Manchester United win this, it is a big deal. Like Pep Guardiola, one of those people who would definitely remind you of how many trophies he wins in any given season. Given the Premier League is now off the table, you would imagine that he will also be going gung-ho for this. It's been kind of filtered through with the pre-match narrative on both sides, which is Solskjaer having a pop at Manchester City for their tactical fouling. You don't want to name names, but someone like Fernandinho, you would have thought is a world leader in that department. And then on the other side of the coin, you've got headlines this morning about Pep Guardiola saying he will never manage Manchester United and would rather play golf. Just like he says he would never manage Real Madrid. Like, we were getting into kind of the sliding doors situation yesterday of if Ancelotti had actually become Liverpool manager. There was a similar situation, obviously, with Manchester United and Pep Guardiola post Alex Ferguson, but of course Bayern Munich swooped in, and that was the end of that particular thing. And you would wonder in what sort of different place they would be now. Manchester United. Perhaps it was always going to be a difficult place, and perhaps Pep Guardiola's legacy would be a little bit tainted by succeeding Ferguson.
It's so stupid that Manchester United don't have either Guardiola or Klopp as their manager, when they could clearly have had both if they wanted it. And it's a clear indication that the club's being, like, barely managed by the Glazers, who are like, we have this thing over there, it's pumping out money, what do we need to do anything about it for?
Like, it's true. Like, when you go back, I don't think it's too much hindsight being used to suggest that these two guys would have been fantastic options for everybody involved. Now, I know Arsenal tend to get into the mix with the, oh God, we missed out on Jurgen Klopp story as well, but they held on to Arsene Wenger for a little bit too long. For Manchester City, or for Manchester United rather, like they'd made that move much earlier. They got rid of Alex Ferguson, had got rid of himself from Manchester United much earlier than that. There was a succession plan that even if David Moyes was going to become the stopgap for a certain amount of time, you still had these two top-class managers working abroad, and he might have become available at some point down the line. That perhaps they just needed to wake up and admit that David Moyes was not going to ever see out his, 6-year contract or whatever it ended up being in the end. That actually he was always going to go through a tough time, and then in their minds, picking the successor to Moyes is what they needed to do, but actually they thought that Moyes was going to become Ferguson 2.0.
But with no evidence.
With no evidence.
It made no sense.
It really didn't. And
there was a great line yesterday from Mike Carlton in the middle of his piece where he was like, what he really wants to do is pick up Marcus Mariota, who's been cast aside by the Tennessee Titans, and prove that he can do this without Tom Brady. And I think that, and it's like, oh, maybe that's not really what he wants to, that's not how he's thinking. That's exactly how he's thinking. And exactly how Ferguson was thinking was, I'm going to put Moyes in here, and you can all see what it's like without me.
There's definitely an element of truth in that. Another thing, like...
There's nothing other than truth in that. That's the 100% thing. It was like, he's not going to let somebody like Klopp come in or Guardiola. No way. They might do better. What if they did better? What if they won back-to-back Champions Leagues or rattled off 2 Champions Leagues in 4 seasons that it took Ferguson 26 years to win?
The identity of managing Manchester United is being Scottish, it turns out.
Here's Pep Guardiola, right, who... I think he has a love-hate relationship with golf, if I'm not mistaken. Certainly, he came very late to the sport, as far as I know. But here he was asked about, that Man United thing that Graham said he really wanted to. He was heartbroken when he didn't get the gig, right? So have a listen.
After training City, never would train United. It's like I would never train Madrid.
Definitely not. Whatever happens in the future. If it was the only offer.
I will be in Maldives if I don't have offers.
Fair enough.
But in Maldives, no, because no golf courses. But
all right, so the correct was I'll be in the Maldives. But no, not the Maldives. They have no golf courses.
So he's got to pick somewhere else that does have actual good golf courses.
There's a business opening first week. Go to the Maldives and buy a set-up golf course.
Golf, it seems like something very, very dangerous. So that is a good idea. Golf seems like something very dangerous to a man like Pep Guardiola, the obsessive that he is. He presumably looks at things like video games and says, I'm never touching that for fear that I get addicted to something like that. I would assume golf has the same stranglehold on him whenever he gets a time.
Sorry, but the Shangri-La, which is obviously one of the nicest hotel groups in the world, has a golf course in Sri Lanka, in the Maldives. So,
but it's just one. You need multiple ones if you're going to be Pep Guardiola.
He would master that one so quickly.
Like, where do you go next if you are a man with Pep Guardiola's gifts?
I'm scrolling through the pictures of the Shangri-La in
It's pretty nice.
I'm
not going to lie, everyone, it's pretty nice.
It looks pretty good.
That is the most turquoise I've ever seen the colour turquoise.
Oh, their lives are so ridiculous, aren't they?
They really are.
Where do you go? I don't know. What do? You go back to Barcelona for one last fling with Messi, and you try and win the Champions League that you all know you need to make your career have reached the true level of fulfillment that your talent and domination in football allowed it. They don't have enough Champions Leagues. They need more Champions Leagues to be considered to have fulfilled their potential. They're obviously going to be the greatest footballer, and he's the greatest manager, and that was the greatest team. But they need more Champions Leagues. It's a results business. It's a cliche because it's true. You need those teams to have achieved more, and he needs to achieve more, and he needs to win the Champions League with Manchester City this year. All this, I don't have enough resources, bollocks.
Has he said that?
Loads of times.
He certainly complained around this time of year about what the calendar tends to do to his players. But you're right, Lionel Messi has made no secret about the fact that he desperately wants one last Champions League medal. And maybe it's not one last one, perhaps he wants to win a couple more. But he's hungry for that now. He doesn't care about La Liga anymore. And maybe he is also pining for Pep Guardiola's return. And maybe he believes that he is the man who could bring it back to the new camp. So I don't know, that's a decent shout. That's what Pep could go and do. But I often wonder where does the man get his fulfillment after that? If he goes back to Barcelona and wins again and gets that, he has all the money in the world. He's not going to have the allure of big clubs in Asia or wherever the money will be in 5-10 years' time. kind of itched and scratch in New York for a while. He mentioned the Maldives. Like the Maldives was just a strange suggestion from someone like Pep Guardiola. Like I could easily see Pep Guardiola just popping up in a hostel somewhere in the world and traveling around.
I think that he has rope-a-doped everybody with that whole notion of him. I think if you read about Pep Guardiola getting the Barcelona gig, it was done at a 3-star Michelin-starred restaurant in Barcelona. Like, he is a bon vivant. He is like living in penthouses. He is not youth hostling and slumming it with, he's not backpacking in Thailand.
Let me rephrase.
He's flying over in a private jet, getting a private tour of all the sites and then having a private beach. Like, Pep lives well. Pep spends his money. He's not like...
I had forgotten about the whole penthouse addiction that Pep Guardiola tended to pick up in New York City. But like there were still appearances to be kept up. There is Instagram and an Instagram account to be opened yet by him. Like you post the photos of you in Cambodia with your backpack on, and then you stay in a 5-star hotel afterwards.
Then you hand the backpack back to your servant. And
you drive off in the tuk-tuk.
You get a little spritz and a wipe, and you go, okay, thanks very much, right, done.
And then you fly private on to your next destination.
Yeah, no tuk-tuks.
No, that's... I meant for the person who's carrying his bag, or that unfortunate person. But yeah, that's him. That's Insta-Hun Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, look, there's loads going on, so let's tell you what's coming up on the show today, and we'll get into it, because the papers are full of some big news this morning. 42 minutes past 7 here on OTB AM this morning. I hope you're listening to us on OTB Sports Radio. The sports page is coming your way 7:40, talking Gaelic football with Killian Clark, who up to now has been a Cavan footballer, but he's on a year out. We talked to him about why that's happening. Joey Carbery is out for, it looks like, potentially 3 months with a tendon injury in his wrist. He's had surgery, or will have surgery on that. Details coming through from his own Instagram account last night, and also confirmation from Munster, but it looks like he's in doubt for maybe the entire Six Nations, but certainly gone for the start of it. Ty Kennelly is going to join us at 8:45 to talk to us about Mickey Hart's comments about former GAA players acting as agents on behalf of the AFL, luring young Irish Gaelic footballers to Australia for, fame and fortune and a bit of sunshine in their lives, and going to do Deal or No Deal coming your way at around about 9:15. Also going to try and catch up on the FAI story, which leads the back page of the Daily Mail, which we'll get into now in the papers.
OTB AM.
Yeah, so the two big stories, both on the back page of the Irish Daily Mail this morning. Carbery blow, Munster go into key tie without influential star, so we'll get to that in just a second. And the FAI set for bailout and arrival of directors. This is Philip Quinn, who seems to be the only person who has this morning. The FAI's 18 million bailout is set to be revealed this week, as well as the identities of the new independent directors. It says that a provisional agreement has been reached between the FAI and its senior stakeholders, the government and the banks. UEFA, who are owed 25 million by the FAI, are supportive of the deal, which means the FAI, with debts close to 70 million, can keep trading. So they're saying that they'll continue as a member of UEFA. League of Ireland clubs can continue to compete in European competition, but job losses are expected at the FAI. There is no financial aid earmarked for League of Ireland clubs under the terms of the bailout. The FAI board is to welcome 4 outside directors almost 7 months after the governance review has made up its recommendation. And then the chief executive, it's obviously a new chief executive is going to be a priority, but I don't think the chief executive is going to be one of those 4 independent directors. Yes, it's going to be very interesting to see exactly what happens and what the terms of this bailout are. It always looked like the government were going to have to step in. A bailout is something where you come in and you guarantee. It's not where you go in and you give money free gratis and for nothing. You've got to get that money back. That's what that deal is. Over a long period of time, you turn it into a properly trading organisation, and some of it you turn into grants, if that's what needs to be done, but the rest of it you expect to get back.
Is the €18 million going to be a reasonable bailout then, is the big question you'd have? Well, is it too much to ask at the moment from the FAI?
Well, the business plan that was presented, which Shane Ross was blabbing about in the committee in the immediate aftermath of meeting the FAI, he's like, I'm not sure if this is a credible business plan at all, but like that's the business plan that they have to back, and that's the one that they have to bail out, and that's the one that Paul Cook was putting together. And in fairness, like, they had just got their teeth into it. This is obviously a crisis scenario where they're trying to fix things. So let's wait and see exactly what the terms of the deal are and what the terms of the bailout are, and hopefully all that stuff is made public. So people can begin to say, yeah, I think this is fair, or that's not fair, or this needs to happen, and that the stakeholders, the grassroots and the legitimate stakeholders all get an opportunity to voice their opinion on it.
It's interesting how Shane Ross has gone about the last couple of days. Obviously, we expect movement on this probably tomorrow, really. Like we could see 4 independent directors, or maybe Thursday. But obviously, pre-Christmas, you had the faux pas in the Oireachtas committee about League of Ireland clubs and not knowing the future of the League of Ireland clubs if the FAI were to go bust or to go out of business entirely. And then he met, I think, like 40 League of Ireland's delegates then last week rather, to, like, I'm not sure, was it to make amends for it, or is it to almost hear them out, or almost to educate himself on what the grassroots football people need and what all the different stakeholders require and what they're all thinking. So perhaps that was a bit more of an encouraging sign. And another thing I've noticed, how kind of tight-lipped everyone is around the identity of these 4 independent directors. There hasn't been any re-leak, has there?
I think one of them has said he's a candidate. According to John Fallon today in The Examiner, Cork native Jerry McEnany is the only contender to so far publicly declare his intention to run for the vacancy. Oh no, sorry, no, that's not the independent director. That's a replacement of outgoing president Donald Conway, who will come from a restricted field. So he's running for president. Sorry, incorrect. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, you're right. No leaks as to who the independent directors might be.
Be interesting to see it. Like they haven't named it either, which day it is, because I know reading last week it was supposed to be early next week. So I was kind of thinking today, but I presume it'll be tomorrow, the day after. I'm sure there will be some sort of movement, and the details will start to come out over the next couple of days. The back of the Sun this morning, that's that Pep Guardiola story. Clubbed, I'd rather play golf than be United boss. And 1-0 to the Arsenal. That is Reese Nelson celebrating his scrappy winner for Arsenal last night. And Ant case is closed. Spurs and the police have found no evidence of alleged racism towards Antonio Rudiger, and wrist KO for Joey. Joey Carbery has been dealt another injury blow and will need surgery on a wrist problem.
Say it ain't so. Joe is the front of The Examiner this morning. Ireland and Munster rocked by Carbery wrist injury, and so they've got a couple of pages on that. And then when you start to get into it, the number of games Joey Carbery's played in the last 16 months is not great. But also, who's going to be fit to play out half at this stage? Scannell might start.
Ben Healy is the only fit, really, kind of out half that Munster have in their ranks, and given he's never played a Champions Cup game as far as I'm aware, it would be up to Rory Scannell to perhaps move in from his usual position of inside centre to 10.
Tyler Blendell remains absent with a neck injury. JJ Hanrahan is still recovering from a hamstring injury picked up in the middle of the festive fixture against Leinster. Munster say Hanrahan's rehabbing well, but remains to be seen if he's going to be fit to start. So Rory Scannell to switch from centre to out half, and then Ben Healy, they could throw him in at the deep end. I mean, maybe that's exactly what happens, and that's a baptism of fire for somebody who's played for Ireland at under 20. So it's not like it's going to be the first big game of his career, but it would certainly be season on the line away in Paris. Very difficult to expect somebody with that lack of experience to be able to run the game the way you need to. But this is like a team aren't playing well, and then you have this extra injury crisis on top of everything. Maybe the team aren't playing well because there's an injury crisis, and it's unfair then to throw the brickbats that have been thrown. But at the same time, you know, in studio yesterday, Alan Quinlan was very strong when he was saying that he didn't feel like the forwards were just good enough at the moment, which is pretty black and white. It's a binary thing. You're either good enough or you're not.
Around this time last season, I can't remember, was it before or after Christmas? I think it was after Christmas, obviously, that game at Kingsholm when Joey Carbery puts through that magnificent grubber kick for someone to finish off a try, and you think to yourself, right, Joey Carbery's Munster career is finally here. And it's been the year from hell for Joey Carbery, really. Like, you think about it, he's only back 2 weeks ago from that ankle injury. The World Cup was obviously a complete disaster for him because of the damage he'd done to his ankle in the Italy game beforehand, and then coming into play a little bit and then getting knocked out again a little bit to be injured for Munster as soon as he came back from Japan. Then like last season, it was his hamstring issues that really kind of tripped him up, and he missed a lot of the end of the season. He missed that Saracen semi-final, for example, in the Champions Cup. And then when he had just made his real breakthrough in around, I suppose it was 15, 16, he then gets his start against Fiji in November 2017. Did he break his arm on that occasion? Like, it's just been so many bad luck stories for Joey Carbery at this point. 24 years old. You have to say the injuries are hampering his career and holding him back. And it's the heartbreak story for Irish rugby really over the last 12 months. You can sort of take the disappointment in the Six Nations and in the World Cup, but to see a young man's career being stalled by bad luck time and time again, this is a training ground injury. It's heartbreaking for him.
Yeah, it did not happen in the game. Did it not happen at the end of the game? I wasn't sure. But it is, like, and there's nothing you can say. You just hope that this is something that he works out, that this surgery comes back and the rest of his body is fine. And, like, they're not. So if it was just one chronic thing, if it was just, you know, the terrible situation Tyler Blandoff finds himself in with a neck injury that continues to happen and happen and happen, you just hope that this settles down and then he goes and has 3 or 4 years in a row where nothing happens to him. But
that has to be, like, I guess that is the positive spin on it. All right, there isn't one recurring element here. There are a lot of little bits and pieces, but this should have been the year where Joey Carbery put down a lot of game time at 10 in the red jersey. Like, people will say, Leinster fans especially will say that one of the reasons why he went to Munster was to rack up game time. He was never going to get enough game time in the big games with Johnny Sexton there in Dublin. And unfortunately, his body's just let him down in terms of actually getting those big minutes on a regular basis over the last 12 months.
It's 7:52 this morning here on OTB AM, the back page of the Herald. We're still the biggest. Solskjaer turns up heat ahead of cup clash with city rivals. Well, how do you define which of these two clubs is the biggest at the moment? Is it, I mean, what number of supporters worldwide, I suppose, would be the thing? In which case, it's not even close, right?
Total titles ever? Premier League era, maybe? This decade?
Best team right now? Who has Pep Guardiola?
Like, so maybe, okay, so...
Which of your owners are you happier about their...
Put yourself back in the shoes
they're running the club and their reasons for investing?
Like, put yourself back in the shoes of the post-VAR supporter.
Yeah.
So pretend you're a teenage kid again.
You, basically.
Thank you very much. Who are you supporting? Who are you picking up?
City.
You're scrolling through FIFA.
Yeah.
You don't see who owns the team when you're scrolling through FIFA.
No, you're like...
All you see is...
Aguero.
Yeah, and you see, like, Raheem Sterling doing a 360 twirl in a nice sky blue kit, and you're like, I like that team. 5 stars on FIFA. Because Manchester United, like, I don't know, I may be out of touch, kids, but they could be down to a 4 out of 5 star team right now in FIFA. I don't quite know.
Well, ever since your FIFA Farrago, when you didn't pick Messi in your team, yeah, I can see why you would have rejected the entire thing, but yeah, they're probably 4.5, I guess, are they?
I just don't know. The short answer is that...
Still 5 at the minute, we're told.
If you're impressionable...
Alex knows.
If you're impressionable and...
He is actually a teenager.
A student of the post-VAR world, then you're probably picking Manchester City to support. But is that the correct thing to do? I think Manchester United, in the long run, will probably give you a more fulfilling life. Back page in the Irish, not that fulfilling life, that being said. Back page of the Irish Independent is Carbery, Six Nations in doubt after fresh setback. Luckless playmaker set for another spell as Munster and Ireland face out-half crisis. We need to be protected from City's fouling, insists Solskjaer. I mentioned that a moment ago. Solskjaer stoking the pre-match mind games with Manchester City by claiming his United side have become a target of frequent tactical fouling and call for more protection. And that is Reese Nelson celebrating his winner for Arsenal last night.
The back page of the Times, Saracens may be forced to offload stars. No shit. I mean, this is what happens when you break the salary cap. You have to sell some of your players or release them. But yeah, eventually, because, you know, everybody's like, oh, Saracens obviously found guilty, fined loads of money for breaching the salary cap, but they seem to have all the same players and the same money. How did that happen?
What is the actual punishment here?
The conclusion was they were still breaking the salary cap. So eventually, here we are, what are we, January 2020, the 7th. Saracens may have to jettison some of their star players in the coming weeks to comply with the Premiership salary cap rules. I mean, why did they have to do this at the start of the season? In a dramatic change of approach, Edward Griffiths, the interim chief executive, suggested that contrary to previous statements made by the club, Saracens would quickly have to trim their wage bill by offloading players or implementing wage cuts. That's a good way of getting everybody to have some wage cuts for like 6 months, and then they all go in the summer after they've won the European Cup. I wonder, could they bonus them?
Not a bad shout.
Do you know?
All of a sudden,
we've got to cut your salary to here, and then we'll find a bonus from somewhere to win the European Cup.
Avoiding relegation bonus. in the Gallagher Premiership.
Yeah.
That'd be the way to give that money back to whatever the businesses are that were being paid by that money.
Liam Williams is returning to Scarlet at the end of the season, but it was reported by the Rugby paper on Sunday Williams might be allowed to return immediately. This is the kind of deal by which Saracens could reduce their wage bill.
Send Owen Farrell to Munster, get him in the 10 jersey for the weekend.
Yeah, it'd be great, wouldn't it?
Offload some of those wages, is what I say.
Yeah.
Back page.
Can he play for his dad?
I would like to think so.
Just for, like, you know, this Six Nations thing. He's the transition.
It's the classic your da rule that applies in rugby by all accounts. The front page of the Irish Times sports pages leads with Reese Nelson's goal. Nelson edges Arsenal past Bielsa's promotion hopefuls, and I'd rather play golf than manage United. That is Pep Guardiola's comments.
I don't believe him. He'd much rather manage United than play golf. There's no golf course in the world that Pep would love more than managing Man United.
Does Solskjaer not look like the type of guy who's just desperate for a game of golf right now?
Yes, he does. He looks wan and jaded, like he's not sleeping.
It looks like, yeah, it's as if something is constantly rattling and inside his head and constantly waking him up every single night. He does look like he's lacking sleep. Pep Guardiola looks like a healthier man. Randolph set to rejoin West Ham is some of the other news here as well, which you may have seen over the last couple of days. Fulham to face Hull City, that is from the FA Cup draw, and as already mentioned, investigation finds no evidence of alleged racism against Rudiger. Also mentioned here, Cristiano Ronaldo scored a second-half hat-trick to lead Serie A champions Juventus to a 4-0 win in Serie A yesterday.
There are two rugby stories, just very briefly. Owen Slott is asking, can we start to trust Saracens again? I mean, that's very quick forgiveness, isn't it? I understand that we live in an accelerated culture where, like, all sorts of things can happen in politics, and then the next day another story happens. You're like, oh, what was that thing that we were all supposed to be angry about Boris Johnson for? I can't even remember that. And then he wins in a landslide. But, like, you know, the real world is supposed to take a little bit slower. Let me see Saracens prove that they're actually obeying the rules, as opposed to, you know, telling everybody they're about to obey the rules. And then Worcesterlock has operation to restore full feeling in limbs. This is a pretty horrific story. The Worcester Warriors lock Michael Fatialofa had surgery last night to relieve pressure on his spinal cord, having suffered a neck injury during his side's Premiership game away to Saracens on Saturday. He's 27 and he had significantly reduced feeling in his arms and legs in the intensive care unit at St Mary's Hospital in Paddington in London. He was awake before the surgery. No broken bones, but bruising and swelling to the spinal cord. And the decision was taken yesterday to operate with the aim of restoring function to his arms and legs. So the notion of him playing rugby again doesn't seem particularly important, but the notion of him actually having use of his arms and legs, like, it's always there in rugby, isn't it? It's always there, that horrific fear that somebody can have a life-altering injury just for playing the sport that they do for entertainment, for our entertainment.
Yeah, that is certainly a grim story this morning. Back page of the Mirror is Reese is the word. Nelson strike settles Arsenal nerves, but Lacazette's so lucky not to see red. Carbs is wrist off. Meanwhile, that's in relation to his injury. Angry boss Ole says, protect my men from fouling City. And Pep says, I'd never coach United.
Man tricky. Is that it? Is that the headline of the day? Ole cries foul to ref over City tactics. He says that they, they foul and foul and foul and foul again.
Reese is the word is tab of the morning to you.
What?
Reese is the word is obviously tab of the morning to you. Is it not? Is it better than man tricky?
What's Reese is the word?
Grease is the word, is it not?
Grease is the word?
Is it? I don't know.
What?
I don't know, to be quite honest with you.
Where's it come from?
Is it not a Grease reference?
As in the musical Grease?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have you seen it?
No.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
I mean...
Now I've kind of like waded into waters that I needed to have a lot of backup for.
If it was Reese Lightning, I would be like, okay, I get that.
But see, I was hoping for that this morning and nobody went for it.
Reese Lightning.
But like, no, there is no Reese Lightning this morning.
Look at this, back page of the Star. What is it? Reese Lightning.
Have a morning to you. At long last, it's right there.
Clark Hart's claimed comical. So Marty Clark insists he had nothing to do with Colin McShane's potential transfer to Aussie rules. Clark was responding to comments by Tyrone boss Mickey Hart, who said he was saddened that former GAA players were wooing rising and current stars on behalf of the AFL. So Marty Clark was on the BBC last night and he was interviewed and he was asked, look, everybody knows, well known that you're involved with the AFL. Mickey Hart didn't name anybody in particular. Did you take it as a personal slight? It's like, no, I didn't take it as a personal slight, but it's comical to suggest that it's a free shot for these, or a free gamble for these clubs. Clubs have to spend loads of money on flights, more difficult to get somebody from a different culture to come in who has never played with this particular type of football, and that costs loads of money. So loads of clubs don't even come to Ireland looking for players because they figure that it's going to be too difficult for them. And he said he'd never even spoken to Cathal McShane, had admired him from afar, but that was it. And that the Adelaide Crows had thought about this all on their own. So a war of words has broken out between Mickey Hart and some of the AFL recruiters, which might happen a little bit later on in this show. It's 8:08, but Ty Connelly's going to be with us around about 8:45 this morning.
Just a couple of the other papers to finish off this morning. The Guardian leading with cricket. They also have that story as well. Police end inquiry into alleged abuse at Tottenham. And back page of the Racing Post is thin blue line. Cup holders can claim narrow advantage in first leg at Old Trafford. And it is Reese Nelson on the Daily Telegraph. Nelson sees Arsenal home. Young Gunners seals their win.
And the last one for now is the Irish News this morning. Ricey critical of new rules and timekeeping. Earn Boss baffled by ref calls in Antrim loss. So Ryan McMahon's going to be interesting. Hopefully he's free speaking as the Fermanagh boss and feels like he has an opportunity to get out there and influence the general thought. Gunners salute. That's David Luiz. If we can stick that one back up for 1 sec. Sorry, yeah, it's David Luiz. Obviously giving the old thumbs up. David Luiz has a future there. And Clark Hart's AFL scouting assessment, comical. So on the back page of the Irish News, obviously the GA community in the north are going to be waking up, reading that and seeing two high-profile stars going at it. Mm-hmm. It's exactly what we want in the off-season, right?
It's exactly what we want. It's a great January story. Also have Ray Connellan in a lot of the newspapers today saying going to the AFL is the best thing he's ever done.
So he went out for 2 years, played for Collingwood or Essendon, I can't even remember now, with one of those two, and then came back, played football in America for the summer and is now in UCD, and as soon as the Sigerson wraps up, he's going to be back with Westmeath. And like, I don't know, as a Kildare supporter, when players went over, you were like, well, they're going to come back fully conditioned into the lifestyle of full-time athletes. They're going to know exactly what the demands are, what the rigours are of that type of training, and hopefully they're going to be better for it. That was, like, beyond the initial human thing of wishing them well and hoping that they succeed because they are young Irish people going abroad and doing what, literally tens of millions of Irish people have done since the famine, emigrate in the hope of a better life. You go, yeah, you go off and you go and you have the time of your life. That's what I think about these things.
Mm-hmm. Like I think it's fair enough, but I think it's also fair enough for a manager to be a bit disappointed when they lose a player. But I think perhaps the wide scale.
But how selfish is that? How selfish is it that your immediate reaction is, I've lost a player? How narcissistic is it to put yourself at the centre of a story as opposed to hoping that this young person actually goes off and has a much better life than the small life that they were living where you were their boss and you were the only thing that had the influence over them? How narcissistic do you have to be to put yourself at the centre of a story like that?
Probably quite a bit, but I think that any person, no matter who you are in that situation, eventually gets around to the situation of, right, okay, I've lost my best forward, bit of disappointment, we will move on, and things move on, and like Tyrone will be fine, that they won't be as good without Colin McShane if he does manage to make his move happen to the AFL. But just on the final point on this, like you were talking yesterday about how generally you go down there and you come back a better human and perhaps a better athlete as well. Like a couple of horror stories are often thrown around, like Tommy Walsh, and I think Kieran Sheehan had a bad injury as well. But the AFL aren't deliberately breaking cruciates. Like, I mean, that is things that happen as a result of being a sports person, as a full-time sports person. I guess it is an occupational hazard of playing any sport. It could easily happen when the fixtures calendar is insane in the GAA.
It also suggests that the only identity Tommy Walsh has is his hamstring. That the only part of him that matters in the real world is his hamstring, as opposed to the life experience that he had as a person, the personal growth and development and opportunities that he had. Like, look, maybe he had a horrific time because of the hamstring, but I don't know that. I know that he went down and played well and had a career for a long period of time and then came back. Like
there's something is more important than the health of the leg that'll be swinging over points in the championship for your county when you come back.
And winning All-Irelands. Loads of stuff is more important than winning All-Irelands, especially for these people. And we're going to talk about that after the next ad break.